and that's where, we get into coaching. And I did the 3 problems for years. Buckminster Fuller says you can't change things by fighting. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. What's that mean? By doing the same thing over and over and over again and getting the same result, but wanting something different, right? That's the definition of insanity. To change something, you have to build a new model that makes the old model or the existing model obsolete. And that's really the shift in communication and moving with the times. We've gone through economic changes. People in the last few years have been less willing to part with their money. It doesn't mean they haven't had the money. It just means they've been more skeptical about where they're going to put it. So if we got to change that model, if that consulting model is now obsolete, then what's the new model? And that's where we get into coaching. Statements equal selling. Does anybody ever feel like you're talking someone into care? And that's the most frustrating. Questions equal influence. If you want to create influence and get people from back pain into posture, into spinal correction, into whatever you're delivering, then it has to be their idea. And once it becomes their idea, then they're far more empowered and inspired to do it. In fact, they'll pay you anything. They'll follow the recommendations. So how do we make it their idea? And again, I've already given you the clue. That's the shift into coaching. So what coaching is, if you look at a coach for an athlete, if you're an Olympic coach, you're coaching an Olympic athlete, a coach's responsibility is to pull all the inspiration out of that athlete. Man, when that athlete doesn't feel good, the coach still pushes them to train hard that day. The coach reminds them of the goal. They actually, the athlete may come in and say, I want to go to the Olympics. And the coach trains them and inspires them and keeps that goal in front of their eyes. And everybody has an emotional reason why. If you can't find that emotional reason why, that's why your patients are leaving. What they're saying is, you didn't tell me why I should do this. So, for instance, once you go from pain into posture, you go through a coaching interview on the consultation, you have things like a woman could come in, and I use this example, where you're saying, hey, you have nerve stress in your neck, or your posture in your neck is weak, and that can cause fatigue. And like, oh, my God, I'm so tired all the time. Now you speak to their emotion. Wow, you sound really frustrated. And they're going to say, yeah, I don't feel like a good mom, or it's affecting my marriage. I come home, I'm so tired, it's hard to keep up with the housework. And, you can just kind of get a sense, hey, man, maybe they don't have enough intimacy in their marriage. Now, whatever service you're delivering isn't about changing their spine. It's not about putting a curve in their neck. It's about helping them have a great marriage, to feel like a good mom. Now, if you can say, look, we can help you build your energy and metabolism, she'll pay you anything that you want, because it's not about a curve in her neck anymore. Now what it becomes about is she can feel like a fulfilled person, and that's life coaching. Now, one thing I did, Brian, was I actually became a professional life coach. So I took life coaching communication and put that into a chiropractic consultation, put that into a chiropractic exam and a pre-consultation. And that's what coaching is. Every person has a reason why, and when you find that reason why, their inspiration is going to go to a whole new level. So then the next thing is when you get into the ROF and you're showing somebody their x-rays, rather than you telling them what their problem is, you got to see what they know. So when you care more about what they know rather than what you know, then you're going to start asking questions. Because you guys, we all know this stuff. Hey, man, I have a good curve in my neck. I live by chiropractic lifestyle. I know it. The thing is, what do they know? So again, when you start caring about what they know, then you'll start to ask questions at your ROF. So you're looking at an x-ray. Hey, here's normal, here's yours. What do you see? Now, the funny thing is, how many people in an ROF, you show them, hey, you're supposed to be curved and yours is straight. And the patient says, well, isn't it supposed to be straight? Right? They don't get it. I mean, have you run into that before? So then when you explain what's that mean, hey, a loss of a curve means your spine's collapsing, the structure's weak, your posture's distorted. There's medical studies that show loss of curve is a weakened structure. Hey, that's engineering and leverage. And now there's also, Alf Bragg showed when you lose a curve, it stretches the spinal cord and then shuts down the conductivity. So you basically say, hey, you don't have a curve in your neck. The medical research shows it stretches the curve. You have degeneration. Medical studies show that degenerative discs lead to a shortened lifespan. Here's where knowing a little bit of research makes a big difference. So you basically say, well, you know, if this is the truth, then how's that energy going to move into your body? Now, you could say that energy is not going to move in your body, but when you ask them how's it going to move in there, they're going to say, well, it doesn't. And then the third question, but the organs that run off that life energy, because they learned out on day one, are dependent on that energy to keep you alive and healthy. So if they can't move through this weakened posture and structure, then how's the energy going to bring health to your organs? Now, you can tell them this isn't going to work, but what if they don't believe you? But when they say it's not getting to my organs and that's why I'm not healthy. See, here's the difference, and you know this from experience, Brian, that when they say it, it becomes truth. When you say it, they may not believe you. But it's the funniest thing. When they say it, they believe it. Now, here's the thing. Rather than explaining to them for 20 minutes of how the body works, hey, just go look. Here's what the research says this, and you don't even have to use research. But you speak in bullets, and you go, well, what do you think that means? And they're going to say, well, that means I'm not going to be healthy. Now, right there, then you go to the consultation. That's why you're tired all the time. You have allergies. You know, you got in that car accident 5 years ago, and in the last 5 years, now your immune system's weak, you get colds, you have asthma, now you have heartburn, you're on drugs, you're on blood pressure medication, you're constipated. But it was all after you damaged your spine. Now look, this x-ray proves why that's like that.
Right. So that's...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So Fred, that's... and let me know if I'm getting ahead of myself here, or getting ahead of you here. But I know this just from experience. I think it's a really important point that you basically just explained, like the woman that says, I have low energy, and then you go into that emotion, and then that's the why. Like that, you said that's why they'll do what you tell them they need to do eventually. It's not the how, right? That's the how comes after the why.
Exactly. So regardless of what technique you're using, that's exactly right, Brian. That's how. People don't care how when they have why. I mean, a person that says, I want to climb Mount Everest, well, how hard do they have to train? They're going to hire a coach to train them. That's how they're going to climb it. But they're, you know, a person that's going to run the Ironman triathlon, all they care about is running through that tape. Now, what are they going to have to do to run through that tape? Hey, they're willing to go through hell and back on training to run through that tape. And that's exactly what you said, Brian, that having better energy, to feel like a better mom, you know, be more intimate with her husband. Man, she'll do anything, hopefully, to have that, right? And that's when they'll pay you anything.
So the thing is their why big enough to do what you need them to do from the how perspective? And
exactly.
Cool.
Now, the next thing, and the last question on here, you have to show progression, but that's not what's going to make them pay today. So they have to know, hey, if I don't fix this, and they basically have to say, hey, what will happen if you don't fix this? And they're going to go, well, my health's going to get worse. Well, do you want that? No. How does that make you feel? Well, terrible. I'm tired of being like this. Now, progression is one thing, but progression is why they just paid off their credit cards and they won't pay you. Why their kid needs braces and they're going to do that first. These are all excuses. Why we're saving up for the family vacation. What makes people start today is urgency. And here's one of the biggest mistakes. All management groups teach progression. Very few are effective at urgency. So what you say is, as you're standing there right now, every day you allow your condition to progress. What's happening to your health? So it's not that it's happening. The worst thing you can say is, what's going to happen in the next 10 years? What you just told them was, I have 10 years to fix it. So you have to say, as you're standing there, every day from this moment forward, what's happening to your body? Like from this moment, every second, every day, that's urgency, and that's a huge, huge factor to why they'll pay you today.
Okay. Next slide.
Yep.
All right, number 2. Mistake number 2.
Okay. Yeah, number 2 is you're not focusing on organ problems. Now, here's the thing. That's the why. You know, Brian, studies show that the American population is pulling more money out of their pocket every year beyond their insurance company to get healthy. So the American public wants health. The baby boomers are driving the gross national product, part of a segment of the population driving the gross national product for anti-aging. People want to be healthy, and that's their why. It's not pain. People come in motivated by pain in the beginning, but every chiropractor knows how long does that last. So there's something a heck of a lot bigger than pain, and when you can find that is when they'll pay and when they'll stay. So a huge mistake is not focusing on organ problems, but focusing on pain and how that's affecting, how their pain is affecting their life. Now, there's management groups that say, well, how's that pain affecting your golf game? And how's that? And they're trying to find emotional hooks through pain. And the reality is that's great, but once the pain's gone, then there's no emotional attachment. Right. So when you have an emotional attachment tied to organ problems, number 1, that's the principle of chiropractic. Number 2, you got something much bigger. So let's look at how do we do that. Number 1, they have to buy something much bigger in pain. In chiropractic, spinal correction is a big part of that because in the principle of chiropractic, it's optimal spine equals optimal health. The second thing is you have to have something tangible. Well, a pre- and post-X-ray is tangible. And that's one thing we specialize in elite coaching is showing people that have a desire to make structural correction where you don't have to be a rehab specialist or have an engineering degree or, study years and years and years in technique. There's a couple easy things that you can make with home care that can achieve that. You have to have something they can see. If it's something they can feel, when they feel good, they're going to quit. It's got to be something they can see that's tangible and they can conceptualize. Okay, so posture and spine correction is huge. And we find once people convert that or have at least part of that in their delivery, that's something that's beyond how they feel. And that's important. So people buy with emotion and justify with fact. Again, each patient has an emotional reason for a long-term commitment, and we've gone through that. What I'm really getting at with this slide, even though we talked about it, is our emotional commitment is based on an organ problem. It's the guy that comes in and maybe he has neck pain or low back pain, and then going through and teaching him about posture and health, going through the consultation talking about organs, you find out he's got blood pressure problems or tachycardia. And then as you delve a little more, you find out he's got a history of heart attacks. And then you find out he's had 2 or 3 men in his family die of heart attacks by the time they were 50. And he's 42 with blood pressure problems. The guy's scared to death of a heart attack, and he's coming in with back pain. Well, you talk about that, and then you find a cervical kyphosis, which definitely is going to cause stress on the heart and lungs, and you talk about that, he'll pay you anything you want. And every chiropractor has had the experience. Man, just adjusting people helps people get off blood pressure medication. That one's not even hard. Hey, blood pressure and thyroid, when you adjust the neck, those are very common. So you talk to a person about that, that's an emotional hook.